as a father, I wanted my daughters to have the ability in our relationship to develop themselves as they needed. But as with any human being, we can become selfish and lazy. And without that carrot and stick kind of thing, coming back to the carrot and stick, some positive and negative reinforcements, left to our own devices, we can, idle hands are the devil's playground kind of thing. But it became very clear to me this morning that it's really difficult to put this image into words, that our organ system may actually have an ability to integrate and assimilate and process and digest and in a productive and cultivative way what our eyes see in the world, in such a way as to bring unity to the outside and unity to the inside, without conflict, without the necessity of war and political upheavals, espionage, secret agents, and lies and all that. However, when these roles arise in the world, I think it's very important for us to try to integrate it and process it beyond our own value judgments, to take them as they are, to see them as they are. And I find this really interesting with Toynbee especially, and I think Toynbee influenced Campbell and Spengler. They have different perspectives, but to be able to look back at the main characters in history and integrate them and see their role they played at the time for the expectations of some great destiny that was informing these roles. We could get lost in the idea that we're all so individual and unique that we take it for granted when we are interdependent, and the roles that develop stem from our behavior, which stem from our values, and our values are oftentimes not coming from our own feelings, but from what we are told our feelings are, what we are told to interpret these feelings as. And this is why I separate feelings from emotions. Feelings are the gut experience, the visceral physical experience, whereas emotions are intellectualizations of the mind to try to understand the feelings. And we put all these terms and conditions and names and phrases upon the feelings. And someone who's raised children understands, can readily see certain feelings arising, and how the child is completely unaware and has no terms or phrases to place upon these feelings. They just experience the feelings. And I have watched adults take those feelings of those children and turn them into something else. And being that I observed this through my eye and recognized it intellectually, I got a feeling inside of me that said, well, I don't need to enslave my children to preconceived notions. And I was also a person that was rooted in my feelings, not so much my emotions. And emotions were only terms and phrases that helped to explain things. But I realized when I went to try to explain things, like in my poetry when I was younger, in my writing, and in my speech, many people had different interpretations of feelings, and in fact, they were conditioned, or they themselves just could not integrate certain feelings. They were conditioned not to integrate certain feelings, just not to be aware of them, to dumb them down. And this makes for a society. This makes for a unity, where the culture can start developing into a patterned behavior, where roles start developing. And I'm just at that place in my life where I realize, for me, roles are very fluid. We go in and out of them, in and out of them. And many people just do the status quo, what will be expected, what will be readily understood. But for me, that does a disservice. It doesn't really touch the root. But I realized also that many people don't want to go very deep. They want to stay on the surface. And on the surface, things are very disunified, very separate. They seem very individualized and individuated. And there's not a grand organizing perspective that unifies them all. And as a result, we get into arguments. Everybody's portraying their own little perspective of their unique view. And we get the same old conflicts over and over and over, as historians have been able, some historians, comparative historians, have been able to recognize in various civilizations. The idea of the archetypes comes to mind of Carl Jung, and I think there are a lot of writers out there that understand there's a basic pattern to a well-written story, that they, and Campbell also saw this in the monomyth of James Joyce, where these recurring patterns, these recurring roles arose to fulfill a very specific purpose. But what Spengler came along and said was that each civilization, each society, each civilization has their own rendition, their own purpose, their own destiny. I'm reminded of how I realized that reading Carl Jung, I came to understand that religions were unique little medicine for a group that identified with that religion or were born into that religion, to address their psychological disorders. So typical disorders would arise in a certain group of people, and those disorders were resolved through a specific kind of religion, religious doctrine. So religions in that view became a hospital for the ill. Nietzsche called humanity the sick animal, so I don't think any of us are free of all ills. And I think I lost it. I knew I had it this morning, but I lost the main idea, and it had to do with society coming before culture. I think what it has to do with is that some people never come in contact with their culture. and they live off of their society. They live only in the social sphere. That's what it was. I realized, well, let's go to the next clip.